Welcome to AI for You. Today's use case is all about using AI to enhance your email performance. Now, one of my favorite tools for this is the Mailed It Custom GPT, which we'll be talking about more in this episode. And the link to that will be in the show notes, along with today's prompt, which demonstrates how you can use your email data to come up with ideas for A/B testing that you could integrate into the email tool of your choice. You can use all sorts of data from your email software to get better insights, but this example looks specifically at open rates and subject lines. Now, you could use the same convention to improve click-through rates, calls to action, or just the content itself. Remember, you want to be sure you're not uploading any names, emails, or other personal data into any of these public models, even the paid versions, if you don't understand how they might be using your data. In this episode, I'm talking with Day Kibbolds about the intersection of email and AI. Day is the vice president of Ology, a higher ed marketing and branding agency. She's also the co-author of Mailed It. It's a fantastic book that I highly recommend. And she's a leader in email strategy. Let's jump right in. Well, Day, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be on your show.
So you email maven. You co-authored the book Mailed It, which is right here with
Yes.
Ashley Budd, and you do workshops at institutions all around the world. How does AI fit into email? How can AI be used to help improve email?
Yeah. I mean, there are so many ways and it's only getting better, but I will confess that AI was the original, maybe not the original, but the most urgent catalyst for us to write Mailed It. You know, a couple of years ago when AI started getting into our hands, we started seeing folks using it to write emails and the emails were terrible. Like the AI models were being trained on bad emails. So we wanted to correct the record and put like the best practices out there. We needed to put that on paper because when it's used well, when it's used knowing some of the best practices, and when you use a model that you trust that has been trained properly, it's actually amazing. It's a really helpful tool because it does a bunch of things really well. It simplifies language really well. It can give you great short summaries of things to put in an email or use as a subject line. And it's really good at writing effective calls to action as well. So it can help in your content creation for email. It can help in your planning for email. If the folks listening are in the email marketing world at all, they know inbox providers like Gmail and Microsoft and so on, like Outlook, they're using email also to help the reader and the inbox management side of things. So it can only help, but you still have to know the best practices so you can actually make it work for you.
I mean, we see, when I talk to people in higher ed and ask them how they're using AI, the number one response that I get from most people is like, oh, I'm using it to help me with my email. And we see, Gmail and Microsoft Copilot, all of these tools have like, respond to this email for me, or they'll like autocomplete your entire email. So what are some of the things that you see those like autoresponders like getting the most wrong?
Typically it's the first line, truly. I know if folks have ever heard me and Ashley speak, we believe the first line is really, really important based on how people read emails. And most tools will start with some version of, I hope this email finds you well. That's a throwaway line that we feel we need to write. And so we do write, and the models have learned to write, but that's one of the things that I don't think it does well at all. Another thing it doesn't do yet or well is understanding reading patterns. So how do people actually read online? How do people actually read emails? What do the eyes do? Where should the content go? And so they don't know that either, right? I will say the tools are getting better. Even from like last year to now, sometimes I see the automatically generated things and I'm like, all right, that's not terrible. That's not bad. But there's these little tweaks based on some of the science of how people read email that it doesn't yet know. It's funny because I have an anecdote about this. I don't remember when this was. It was the commercial for the new iPhone or something that had AI integrated in it. And there was literally like a 1-second shot of this person holding their phone and it had like an like an AI generated email. And all I could see was the first line. I hope this email finds you well. And I'm like, oh my God, somebody put me in touch with Apple. Like, I will fix Apple's AI model. Because that's just the worst thing you could say at the beginning of an email.
Well, speaking of fixing AI models, you and Ashley actually built a custom GPT. And for any like new listeners who don't know what custom GPTs are, they're like these mini models that you can train for specific workflows or specific purposes within ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it like building this custom GPT using your, everything that you learned from the book?
I know how to do some basic programming. So I know how to do Microsoft Access, and I learned HTML back in the day and like very basic stuff. You understand how programming works. You give an instruction, you're very precise. You say what to do and what not to do. I will say making a custom GPT is not like that at all. I'm a mom. I have a 6-year-old. And if I tell my son what to do or what not to do, that's not what's going to happen. So creating a custom GPT is like talking to a toddler, like a young person who you kind of just have to convince that what you want, like the outcome you want, is the best approach. It was an adjustment. I really had to learn how to give it instructions. Sometimes, and I'm sure you know this, Brian, and some of your listeners do too, who have made custom GPTs, like if you tell it exactly, do not do this, it might sometimes. So you kind of have to think about okay, how do I frame that as in a positive? Like, always do this. But even then, it might not. So, oh man, it was a learning curve, a learning process. It still doesn't get it exactly right. But what I learned through it is, even in the writing of the instructions, I had to be so concise and so specific and really think about how things layer on top of each other. Like, how do I start? What's next? And then I found this really great resource that talked about the markup of giving custom GPTs hierarchy and instructions. So it's like, okay, if you want a heading, if this is a heading, you need to use this symbol. It's like a pound. Or if you want, make sure things are in this order. And then I think this is a tip I learned from you. I would ask the model itself, if I want you to do this, like, what instructions do I need to give you? And that helped me so much. Like, I put all my instructions back in the model and I was like, what's not clear? What's redundant? How can you clean this up for me? Now that it's live and it's being used, even when I use it, I marvel at the results. I'm like, you are so smart. This little model is so smart. We did also feed it 2 chapters of our book. We didn't feed the whole book into it because intellectual property still makes me nervous. But we put 2 chapters in there. And a lot of people tell us it feels like it's talking to me and Ashley, like when they're using it, because it really picked up on the voice and the tone of the book. So it was a great experience. There's definitely a learning curve, but it's absolutely worth it.
So I love the Mailed It GPT. I love creating these custom GPTs, but I know they are kind of an ongoing, always going back and tweaking. And usually the first iteration is like, doesn't get it all near what you want to accomplish. How many iterations do you think that you went through trying to like figure out how to make it work?
Oh, that's so funny. I think I went through at least 5 iterations, at least. I think the iteration that we have that's live right now, that people are using right now, it hasn't changed for months. I did go in a couple of days ago and I made a small tweak to something because I was using it myself and I was like, no, you don't. Do not do this. But at the beginning, like the first build, it took me many hours and at least 5-8 iterations to get it to where it is right now.
So tell me how it actually helps, or tell the audience, because I have a pretty good understanding.
You're a power user.
How that actually helps refine your emails, what it does within the email.
So for the folks who have read the book, chapters 5 and 6, as I mentioned, they are the chapters that talk about how to write simply and how to format an email. It gives you a few options. You can start from nothing and then ask you for bullet points that it will turn into an email, or you can paste a draft. But what I will typically do is really find a way to bring your key actions to the forefront, put them in the lines where the readers are going to see them, front load all of your verbs, like make it really easy for the reader to pick up on what you're trying to do. So if you are giving it bullet points, it will write the copy that way. If you're giving it a draft, it will reorganize your content in that way. And then it will simplify the language. But then some of the really cool things I think that it does is it gives folks great subject lines, because the instruction is, all right, after you wrote the email, summarize it in 6 words, and it will do that. Include dates and actions in the subject line. And then it will give a great pre-header. Like if this is a marketing email that you're sending to a big list, it will tell you what to put there too. And one of my favorite things that it does is it really kind of creates headings and like it breaks things up and adds white space and makes those headings really easy to read so people can do the normal scanning that they would do and still get the information that they need. Now, the hardest thing I had to get it to do was to let go of the best regards or the sincerely or, oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how much I struggled with that instruction. But that's my favorite result now. It will usually come up with a line that's like something clever and related to the content as a sign off. And like it's my favorite part to see what it comes up with. But I think the most useful part for folks is the output tells you why it changed, what it changed, or why it wrote what it wrote. So my goal with that is that slowly, right, you start to pick up on some of these best practices yourself and you're not dependent on the GPT. But let's be real, like even I'm dependent on the GPT. It makes it so easy, right? But at least you understand why did it do what it did, so that if you're in a position at your institution where you are trying to share best practices with others, you can explain why it made some of the changes that it made.
Yeah. And I read your book, loved the book, and immediately tried to like go and implement some of those things into my emails, which was great. But my memory is not what it used to be. I can't remember everything in the book. So I love using this GPT. I use it on like every important email. I run my newsletter through it. I recommend it at the beginning of my newsletter. And sometimes I'll just like cobble together thoughts and dump them in there, and it will put them together in a good email.
Yeah, it's a nice helper.
Right? It usually gets me like, I'd say 80% of the way there, which is a lot more than a lot of like AI, outputs that I get. So it's fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about your AI journey. So how did you start off in getting into AI? Were you a early adopter or resistant?
Yeah. Definitely not resistant, right? And I think this comes from being one of those millennial children who grew up half not online and half online, right? Like growing up, I was part of like the digital revolution of, suddenly we have social media, we have chat rooms, we have all these things. So it felt very similar to me, like, here's another disruptive thing that's happening. And like, I know from that previous disruptive thing that I went through that this is not something we ignore. So I was definitely an early adopter, but it was much like a lot of people, it was playing around. Like I didn't know how it could help me. I didn't know what I could do with it that was more than just fun. I definitely started playing with ChatGPT, but I did a lot more Midjourney at first than even I'm doing now. I just thought I'm not great at drawing. Like I'm awful at drawing. I can't draw at all. But I always have ideas of how I want things to look. And then just my hands won't do it. And Midjourney gave me that power at first. And like, I remember thinking, wouldn't it be so cool? Like if somebody tells you a story or if you have a memory, right, that you could describe that to this model and it will paint a picture for you that doesn't exist, like could otherwise not exist outside of your brain. So that was, I was playing, truly doing things like that. And definitely early adopter, but not like an early all-in invest everything in AI. And even now, I'm like, I would say I'm pretty measured with it, but I use it every day.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite like play use cases with it?
That's so funny because it's literally play. My husband is a dungeon master. And we have a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that he is running for our son and our friends. And I was like, I'm playing a character that's called a bard, and they are very artistic and performance oriented. And I was like, wouldn't it be funny if my character only spoke in rhyme, Like if everything I said, all of my attacks, all of my things were perfectly rhymed. So I built a custom GPT for my character for this D&D campaign, and I upload my character sheet and all my spells and all of my things. And during the gameplay, I'm sitting there with my computer and I'm like, giving it input as things are happening in the game. And then when it's my turn, I'm like, tell me what to say. Like, what do I do right now? And it will give me like suggestions on what I can do and what in the gameplay, like what does that mean in terms of points and dice and whatever, but also like the lines to say. And everyone loves it. I love it. It's so fun. Another favorite use case. So at Ology, which is where I work, we have a magazine that is like an internal magazine where anyone at the company submits anything they want and it gets published every couple of months, internally only. I've always thought we should share this externally because it's beautiful. But based on kind of what I just shared about this memory, one of the recent submissions was chill, based on the word chill. And it immediately took me to this memory I had of like the scariest ghost story I've ever experienced. The one and only time I've ever seen a ghost. I was a child, so, did I see a ghost? I don't know. And like I had this very vivid memory of what that looked like when I saw this thing, and I could never create it. So I asked Midjourney to build me that image, and I wrote along a little copy with it. And that was another one of my favorite play use cases.
During COVID, I broke out all the old Dungeons and Dragons stuff that I had and got the kids involved in that. So we have these
Oh
huge
my God.
campaigns.
Yes.
And then when, like as COVID wound down or whatever, they kept wanting to play, let's do another, adventure. So yeah, once ChatGPT came out, I was like, oh, this is great. So it's just so fantastic to help like plan out, like generate non-player characters. So many different use cases for it.
My husband's using it. Like he's become a power user as DM because it's everything from how the spaces look, the maps, the characters, to all the things, the NPCs and all the things that could happen in like different scenarios. So he's also really enjoying it and learning AI through this fun game.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, the more ways you can find to use it in your personal life, the better you're going to understand it. So in working at Ology, you work with a lot of different institutions. What are you seeing across those institutions from the standpoint of AI adoption? Where do you see people using or not using the tools?
So most of our work at Ology is typically with folks at universities who work in admissions or advancement or marketing and communications. So we see a lot of use in what we have been talking about, content generation, content polishing, that kind of thing. But I will say, and not just through Ology, I've noticed through my own podcast guests and the schools that Ashley and I do email workshops for, that there's still a little bit of a stigma around using AI. So if you ask people, hey, so how are you using AI or are you using AI? It's almost like a little shameful to confess or admit it still. And some people say, well, I don't use it at all, kind of like a badge of honor, like I'm resisting. And I find that not unusual, right? In terms of something that's disruptive and technology evolution, and also not for higher ed. But I find it interesting that there's still kind of this shame attachment to it. But when there isn't and people are using it, most of the use cases I have seen, just because of my line of work being very marketing centric, is for content generation, content planning, not so much some of the other really powerful use cases that I know are out there.
Yeah, I see a lot of that kind of shadow AI use as well, where either because the school necessarily might not have a policy around using it for, within the staff and administration part of it. So, you have a lot of leaders and staff who are kind of hesitant to share what they're doing or how much time it's saving them.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times by restricting those conversations, you are making it more of a taboo for people to use these. Some of that comes from when it first came into higher ed, it was like, that's how students cheat in their classes,
Yeah, totally.
So I have a lot of people that tell me, it's like, isn't this cheating? Isn't this like, it feels kind of slimy to use, AI tools. And I'm like, it's just a tool. It helps you do your job. You use all these other tools to help you do your job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And my husband is a professor and a lot of our friends are also professors, but they're also kind of in their 30s like me and went through that same digital evolution as children and teenagers. So like I know they are looking at it like, oh, this is so great. Like it's great for class prep. It's great. They're using it to support themselves and each other. And so their approach to it in the classroom is go ahead, use it, but show me the prompt. If you're going to use it, if you're going to write something with it, cool. It's a tool you need to learn to use for your life, but I want to see the entire prompt history. Like I want to see what you asked it. I want to see how you corrected it, because that's, I think, where we're going to start to see, that's where we see the brain, right? The human brain doing the things. It's, ugh, that wasn't great. Try this. Or, oh, great. Can we explore that? And isn't that the purpose of teaching, right? I will say though, right? I am worried, and I'm worried about this for myself too. Like learning how to write is so important.
for
And
sure.
learning how to express ideas clearly is so important. And I do worry a little bit that if we become dependent on this, like, are we going to learn to do it on our own? But then I think, well, if we don't, we're going to find another way. So it's just, I'm very much like humans find a way.
Yeah.
And I'm all for it,
It changes the way that we're teaching and learning. And I think it makes that last step the most critical step, where we actually look at the output and we use our own intellect, we use our own expertise to judge whether or not this is quality or whether or not it's just garbage that, shouldn't be put out there in the world. And I think that's where that critical, strategic, creative skill lies now, not so much in the, initial generation. But even in writing, they always tell us that just get your dirty first draft down, just write it down, get it out there, and then refine and edit. So I think AI is great at those, initial first drafts, but it doesn't know what's quality and what's not.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you find these like shadow use cases and people feeling, weird about using AI, what advice do you have for those institutions who, aren't really looking into adopting or figuring out how to integrate these technologies?
Yeah, I think it goes to something you just said. You have to talk about this, and institutions need to create these policies because there are some really important things that we do have to protect, right? We have to protect personally identifiable data. Nobody should be uploading spreadsheets of student information to these things. And we have to protect intellectual property of things that maybe haven't been published yet, or, yes, we have to do that. But once we establish those guardrails, let people play. Like curiosity and play and boredom, like that's where magic happens, right? Instead of putting it off and being overwhelmed by how many use cases there could be and how big it is, like really think about, okay, what are the absolute musts for our institution? Like what can we not allow? Protecting the things that are being created that are not out in the world yet, maybe. But the rest, it can only help.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it starts there for me. It starts with build a policy so you give people permission to start playing.
Yeah. And so for marketers, admissions, advancement, employees, staff, leaders, how can they get their teams to start preparing for the impact that AI is going to have on their jobs, on their roles that they do, on the work that they do?
So this is something that I heard Seth Odell say in the Higher Ed Pulse podcast once. He at Kanahoma, his agency, he's creating this time for people to start playing around with tools within their job. And it's encouraged, and it's like, they have carved out time for people to do that and try different tools and see how it can help them or not help them, as long as whatever they learn gets shared back to their colleagues, right? I think something like that would be really advantageous. So I lead our research team, and we have talked about how we use AI as an agency, and we use AI to help us consolidate lots of sources of information and like really help us summarize themes. There's also the policy of how we don't use AI. I have found, for example, as a brand strategist myself, that when you're trying to get to that truly different, rising above the sea of sameness, distinct thing, you can't use AI because AI is trained on that sea of sameness. But it really helps bring so many things together. And I've always joked about this. Like sometimes when I ask it things and it tells me something generic, it makes me mad. I'm like, no, that fuels my creative process. And I'm like, I'm going to find something that's actually different. So we don't use it to create, right? We use it to summarize. We use it to help us. We use it as a thought partner. And I think that's what we need to think about in marketing and missions and alumni engagement teams and alumni affairs teams. We need to create the space for people to play with this and see how it helps and how it doesn't. But I do think about the impact of AI in higher ed. There's many kind of uses of how it's going to help us or not help us and change learning. But I think a lot about how for many years, right, we have heard that you need to go study STEM. You got to go study STEM because that's where the jobs are. And that's where you're going to get the 6-figure salary when you graduate. We know that's a myth, but that's the thought. But what people really need to start choosing, and it's us as professionals and students when they choose a career, we really need to start thinking about what we're actually really good at. Like, are you a very talented dancer? Or are you a very talented mathematician? And we need to choose based on that talent or that passion or the things that bring us joy, because AI is going to be okay at everything. Like AI is going to be okay at most things, right? And so we can't choose a career where we're going to be just okay. That's when we might lose our jobs or our career, right? And so, no, I think the days of, look, even if you're a mediocre software engineer, you're going to be fine. I think those days are gone.
Yeah.
Or about to be gone. So I think a lot about like the 17-year-olds being forced into a career path that they're going to be just okay at because it's just not their strength or their passion. It's not worth it anymore because AI is going to be an okay programmer, maybe even better than an okay human who is trying to do something they don't understand or they don't like, right? I actually think we're going to see a shift in the careers and the work that people start doing that excites me because I think it aligns with strength and purpose and passion in a way that we haven't seen before. And we're going to start to see, I think, a rise in the value of the humanities again, because we make those things, right? And the robots can't yet, not with the level of feeling and heart that we do. I think about it at that context of someone choosing their career, and it applies to our peers in their jobs as well. Like if you are in your job and you think I'm just okay at this and I don't enjoy it, and you think a model might be able to do it just as well as you, then we all need to start thinking about what our passions are and what we can actually do better than a just okay robot.
Absolutely. I think the liberal arts education is going to come back around for sure. I think those critical thinking skills, the creativity, and really figuring out how to use these tools as like co-creators and amplifiers for our passions and our areas of expertise is going to be huge. Where do you think AI is going to go in the next couple of years? I used to ask people like 3 years, and that's just too far out to plan. Like in the next year or two, where do you think AI is going to start showing up?
Oh, I think it's going to be in everything, right? It's already in everything. It's almost hard to imagine. What I think is going to happen is we're going to become more comfortable with having it in different spaces of our life, right? Like our fridge telling us, I mean, probably it's already happening too. Like, oh, look, you have these ingredients. Make this tonight. This is going to expire. I think we're going to be more comfortable with it showing up all over. I think we're going to be more comfortable with using it and really kind of as people learning what it's going to help us do versus not. I can't even imagine. I'm not as plugged in as you are, Brian, with like where the tech is going to go. I think it's going to blow our minds. But in general, within the next 1 or 2 years, if anyone listening is early career, like if you're in your 20s and you're in your first job and you're looking at these evolutions and you're looking at this technology, lean in. Like this is your time. This is what I did when social media became a thing at work a few decades ago or a decade or two ago. This is your moment. This is where you build a career. If you attach yourself to these tools, if you figure out a way to do things better, faster, more impactful with these tools, it's going to build your career. So that for the next 1 or 2 years, that would be my focus, is how do I not stay off this boat? If I were in my 20s, I'd be like, okay, how do I make this my thing? Like, this has to be my thing, just like I did with email and social back in the day.
Right. Absolutely. I always end the interviews by asking people, what are the most impactful ways that you're using AI in your workflows right now?
Yeah. As a brand strategist and a researcher for universities, the most common use case for me, the most helpful use case for me is like a really smart thesaurus. It's so simple. Like, I always feel like I'm underutilizing the technology, but I have an idea. I want to say that this school is blank, right? And how can and I ask the model, like, what are some powerful ways to say that? What are some different ways to say that? What are some of the words that you might recommend? And then I look at the options and I either hate them all and stick by my original, or I see one, I'm like, oh, that's a nice thread. And I start pulling on that thread. It's really like a really smart thesaurus partner, or a friend with a thesaurus for a brain. Love. The other thing is, when I'm doing mountains of research, like I have mountains of documents. I love Notebook LM for this. Also because we're a Google company and this is kind of a protected space. It's just like, can you tell me across all of these sources how many times, financial aid comes up, or community comes up, or this word comes up? And that's a time saver. But when it comes to like, okay, what does this mean? What does this matter? That's still me, right? One of my other favorite use cases, I will say, is when we have a quantitative survey and we have 1 million open ends, building word clouds from that. It's really good at that as well. Like, and telling it what to drop and telling it what to look for and doing tallies and counts. I love that as well. So I feel like I'm still a very basic user, but I have found it so helpful.
Can't thank you enough for coming on the show today. If people want to hear more from you, learn more about what you do, where's the best place for them to follow you?
Right. LinkedIn is the best place. I am there all the time. I see the messages that I get and I share content quite often. So find me there.
Awesome. And thanks again for coming on the show and for everything you do for the email and content communities out there.
Thank you, Brian. It was great to be on your show.
What a fun conversation. Day's insights into the technical and human aspects of AI and email are just incredible. She has such a deep understanding of the behavioral science of email. I loved her metaphor comparing building custom GPTs to dealing with a 6-year-old, and her observation about the cultural stigma around AI usage in higher education really highlights a challenge that a lot of institutions face, which is the need to create clear policies that protect sensitive information while encouraging innovation and experimentation. And I think the most compelling part of the interview was her vision of how AI might reshape career paths, potentially elevating humanities and creativity as we increasingly value what it is that makes us uniquely human. And this reminds us that AI integration isn't just about efficiency. It's about amplifying our distinctive human capabilities. Please reach out to me with unique ways that you're integrating AI into your professional and personal lives. And as always, blue skies and keep creating.